Welcome to a new episode with our success series. And also today we have a very special guest, probably one of the most successful people in SEO, a great agency owner of the 180 Marketing. And Jeff actually focused on e-commerce SEO, especially for Shopify stores and other CMSs as well. I know him actually for a really long time. I didn't see him in person yet, but I feel like actually I have seen him many times, like in person. Because we have spent really good amount of time together. And if I may explain, we actually met after my interview with Matt, I believe. You reach out for some personal training. And since then, I believe we became basically friends, at least from my angle. And we kept touch together. I mean, I remember that one time I was just, I guess last year, Chiang Mai, someone from you, for your agency actually approached me and say thank you. I don't remember who she was, but she just said
Katrina.
that.
Yeah, I think she told me about
Probably,
that.
yes. And she was a very actually lovely, kind lady. And I was just actually losing the adrenaline after the stage performance. And she just came to me and said, "Hey, Koray, I just waited for you and I wanted to say thank you." And Jeff says hi. And it was like, okay, my friends are around. It was a really lovely, lovely moment for me. Thanks for providing that moment for me, Jeff. And okay, so let's start slowly. How would you actually describe yourself, Jeff, for the audience?
I would say so. Just a little background about myself. I got into SEO in 2010. My dad used to run a advertising agency, building websites and logos. He had heard about SEO and he didn't have the technical chops to really implement it. So he gave me Google's. It's like a 30 or 50 page ebook about search engine optimization, and I just read through that and did my best. And that's kind of what hooked me. I was always a gamer growing up. I loved playing video games.
Ah,
So for me, SEO is just like a game. You know, you do your tasks,
yeah,
you do your things, and you get to see your ranking. You get to see your score go up. And I've been kind of hooked on it ever since. I tried creating a few drop shipping sites to try to make some money online using SEO. One of which I was able to, I was out of college. I created a e-commerce site selling beer pong tables, which is a popular American drinking game, and ended up selling that off to a manufacturer. I then tried to make a e-commerce site drop shipping 3D printers, but I got hit with lots of stolen credit
yeah,
cards and
I
fraud and
know.
chargebacks. So I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
I enjoy the SEO side. I'm not really enjoying the operation side as much. So around 2012, I went all in on e-commerce SEO, and that's when I started my agency.
Yeah, I remember that. And I believe today too, you don't suggest going for e-commerce for some certain niches or certain regions for people.
Yeah, e-commerce in the U.S. is really difficult. First off, the drop shipping model has kind of been squeezed out. You know, you're going to be competing with people that are manufacturing and white labeling the products in China, and it's just you don't have the margins to compete. You can't outbid them on paid ads. SEO's very competitive in the U.S. market. However, from doing keyword research, thousands of times over the years, I see a huge opportunity in the UK and Australia. There's very, very high search volumes for a lot of these transactional keywords. But the very high search volumes, but the competition is just not there. You know, if you run any of these through Ahrefs, Keyword Explorer, and look at the keyword difficulties, you'll see keywords that are getting searched thousands of times a month, sometimes tens of thousands of times per month,
Yeah.
but they have a keyword difficulty under 5. So if I was to get into e-commerce, I'd probably focus on one of those markets because it hasn't been fully saturated just yet.
Yeah. And also, Jeff, in my opinion, you also helped me greatly. Technically, actually, first you came to me for getting help, but after handling the SEO, you helped me greatly for agency management, agency building, team management, team building, SOP creations. I believe you have a great mind when it comes to the, let's say, human connecting. Like we connect agents to each other today, but you already know how to connect humans to each other with hierarchy in a really great way. And there are many agency owners who actually follow me from our course or case studies, or there are also many people who want to build an agency. So if I were to ask you, let's say, 3 things that you hate about having an agency, what would you tell to people to be ready for?
Okay, great question. So I first started my agency. So it was 2012, 2013. 2013 was the first year I started my
Mhm.
agency. So this is 12 years now. And just to sympathize with any agency owners listening to this, I can't tell you how many days I'd wake up and I just fantasize about all my clients firing me the same day so I could be free of the stress and anxiety that what comes with running an agency. It's I'm not joking. It's not easy. Like, when you're first starting out, you're hustling, you're doing everything yourself. You're trying to get some clients, and you're working so hard, and then you start to get some success, and you got more clients, but you don't have enough revenue to hire much help, so you're stuck doing everything. And growing an agency is really difficult. It's not until you can hire someone who can actually talk to the clients for you where it gets easier. And then the next breakthrough is when you can hire someone who manages the people that talk to the clients where it gets easier. So first thing, if you're an agency owner and you're struggling, I hear you. It's not an easy thing to do. Things that make it easy, and I guess lessons I've learned in the past, even though no matter how busy you are, whatever you're doing, think about how can you systematize it? How can you look at the work you're doing? If you have a deliverable, whether it's keyword research or page optimization or technical audit, what steps are you doing? Take that extra 10% of time to document, like, what do I do first? What do I do second? What do I do third? How do I double check my work? Put it into a Google Doc or Notion or a project management system like ClickUp. That's the only hope you have to get out of the rat race. And then you can hire someone to do it for you. And then that's what's going to really get you out of it. Because if you're so busy, you don't have time to streamline your processes. Well, you just created a hamster wheel for yourself, and you're never going to be able to get out of it.
Definitely, it's like a loop actually, and
Yeah.
a loop of time consumption or patience testing and many other things. And so basically there are like two breakdown there. First, actually finding someone to face the clients, and then finding someone else who can actually manage people who actually face the clients as well.
Yes.
And for the operational side, people who face the client, do they also do the operation, or do you hire someone else for the operational side?
So the way we're structured is we call it an SEO project manager, but other agencies might call it like an SEO account manager, an SEO strategist.
Okay.
This is the person that talks to the client. And they're also handling the account. So they'll run the meetings, they'll send the emails, they'll answer questions. They're the main point of contact. And they're also an SEO wizard. So we really put people through a test to make sure they know SEO. On that position, I've made some very bad decisions hiring in the past. I've hired people that are really good at SEO, but they're not good at communicating. They're not good at building rapport. I can't stress enough. Knowing SEO is not enough to be a good SEO project manager, SEO account manager. You also have to be good at building rapport and connecting with people and making them trust you. If you're too robotic and you're not building that connection, those days when rankings aren't going up or traffic's been flat, those are the times you lose the clients. But if you're able to build rapport and build trust and they believe in you, they're going to endure the rough patches to get to the growth and success. So that's really key. Now, helping the SEO project managers out, we have a team of people that do the content. We have a team of people that do all the SEO deliverables. So my thought process and approach is I want to create SOPs that are so repetitive and effective that even an intern who's never done SEO could go through it and get it 80% of the way there. So we have some people overseas who they just go through the step-by-step SOP with super clear screenshots, images, instructions, in some cases video, that walks them through it. Because to find a good SEO project manager in the United States, you're looking at 70 to 80, maybe $90,000 a year, where you can find a specialist overseas for maybe $500 or $600 a month. So we want to free up as much of the SEO project manager's time as possible, and we do that by having some SEO specialists get the deliverables ready. It might not be 100% of the way there, but if they can get it 80 or 90% of the way there, then that's good enough, and our SEO project managers can take it the rest of the way.
Definitely. I mean, it sounds great. One time I remember that actually you have shown me some Google Forms. You were actually testing and eliminating people who actually don't understand the basics of the SEO by just making them fill some forms. I remember that you were also adding some trap questions, like you were asking something fake about SEO to see that whether they will make it up or whether they will say, no, it's not a thing in SEO or something like that. So it was a really nice trick, actually.
I had a
Maybe
question.
You can explain it.
Yeah. So just interviews take time. So I just want to kind of weed out the people that aren't even worth interviewing. So we had just like a 5 or 6 question Google form. You have the base, like, I think one of the questions was, how the basics, how many years have you been doing SEO? Have you worked for an agency? We found it's way easier to take someone who's worked for an agency versus someone who might have been on the brand side and kind of put them in the agency role, because it's a whole other way of thinking about SEO. If you're working for a brand, you can go really deep. You can go, get super in depth on the website. With agency SEO, you can't. It's more about scalability. It's the 80-20 rule. What's the 20% of things you can work on that gets 80% of the outputs. So we have this Google form in place, and one of the questions I ask is, which of these concepts are you familiar with? And it'd be things like rank brain, canonicalization, and we always put one in there that doesn't exist, and I think the term was reverse index aliasing. And you would be shocked how many people would check that box that they know it, which would make for a very fun interview. It's like, oh, I see that you're familiar with reverse index aliasing. How would you describe that for someone who's not familiar with it? And those conversations are always fun.
I wish you could record these interviews. I would have to watch them.
They're
It will be
quite
really,
enjoyable.
really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I will watch it actually for, let's say I'm fighting with depression. I will watch these videos to just laugh and
Yep.
come to myself. Okay. So I also want to ask about a little bit, let's say, the operational side, because you say that you implement 80 to the 20 rule. So for instance, in my agency, since I just deep dive into the search engine systems, usually people come to me when they are not able to solve something like mission impossible, and they expect me to solve that. So my agency had to evolve a little bit in a different way. But usually, if there are too many agencies who implement or which implement 80 to the 20 rule, how do you show your agency's operational differences or efficiency difference to the client with a presentation, with a meeting, with something? Because one time, a link building agency owner, honestly, he told me that. So we sell links. Other agencies also sell links. We have nothing extra. So that's why they have to be so social, too social, by going to every conference, so that actually they can be the first person who any buyer actually can remember. That was the strategy. Second strategy that they have is they were trying to provide something very cheap opportunity, like $5 log file analysis or $10 something else.
Wow.
To create a difference. But in your situation, how did you create a difference by explaining it for someone who don't understand SEO at all?
I think for us, what worked really well is we decided we'd rather be the best company at one thing than being good enough at everything. So we only work with e-commerce sites, but it's even more specific to that. We really only will work with a client if they're between 2 million in revenue to maybe 10 to 15 million in revenue. Because if you're the way you do SEO for a startup is different from how you do it from a small business, which is different how you do it from enterprise accounts. If you're working with an enterprise, Fortune 500 company, you're really not doing any link building. And a lot of it's just more consulting, and you do a lot more trainings for their teams, and it's a whole nother type of operation. You'll give some recommendations. They're going to sit on the bench for 6 months. Maybe they'll get implemented 6 months later. It's a very slow process, and all they want is consulting and a lot of focus on reporting. And you spend more time putting together PowerPoint presentations and building reports than you actually do SEO, because that's what they want and that's what they need. For us. Our sweet spot, so our services are usually between $3,000 to $10,000 a month. And our whole system and processes is geared around that type of client. We know that we're either talking with the business owner or we're talking with the marketing manager. In most cases, we'll have access to Shopify or Magento or BigCommerce, so we can go in ourselves, which would never happen for an enterprise level client. So we're able to handle implementation. We're familiar with their platform inside and out because we've worked with so many. So when a client comes to us and they're like, hey, what's different about you guys versus all the other SEO companies? I can say, hey, we only work with e-commerce sites. We only work with businesses of your size. We built this repeatable process that works really good for some clients, not all. And if they're a good fit for our process, where maybe they have high volume keywords, low competition, it's e-commerce focused, they allow us to do implementation. It's a good fit, and we can usually get results pretty well.
That's actually great to hear. Well, I also wonder something to learn your opinion as well, because a few times I actually say this to Twitter too. I hate PowerPoint. That's why I also hate sometimes even conferences, because I already know what to say, but I need to ease it on the screen so that actually people can see it visually as well. I believe this enterprise SEO is mostly about being like actually a kind of SEO intelligence service rather than
Yes.
doing the actual SEO. You just help them to understand the current state, current situation, the competitor strategy, or overall state. And that's also something that many SEO consultants don't get at the beginning because they work with so many clients from, let's say, smaller level, and they expect you to actually do something and give the result immediately. But when you go to the enterprise, everything is so political and so official. You are not able to just be straight. And I remember that my record was like 194 days for waiting a very simple
Yeah,
technical
a
SEO
title
test.
tag change in some cases.
Very simple stuff, yeah. And I was answering in Atlassian or something like that by saying that thanks, I was just about to forget that.
Yeah.
And thanks for doing that task. Yeah, it's actually a nice point. When it comes to the pricing, how do you adjust your pricing policy if you want to start an agency? For instance, according to the salaries or according to the sheer volume of, let's say, the potential clients, how do you handle logistics in a successful way?
When I first started, I was basically just a freelancer, and for that, I was just undercutting everybody because because I didn't have an office, I didn't have a team, I didn't have all this overhead. It was just me, so I could charge pretty low. Then once I started to grow, and once I had for a while there, it was just me and then one person that would talk to the clients, and then you have to charge a little bit more. So the way we charge it is every deliverable has a price. So if you do want an SEO diagnostics, that has a cost. If you have, page optimization, we charge a certain amount per page. You want, keyword research, that's another charge. So we've identified it's probably about 10 to 15 deliverables we do, and each has a fixed cost. But and then link building we charge per hour, and that's worked really well for us. I know some people would charge per links, but like the outreach we do is manual, and there might be some months where we get 20 links. Maybe the next month we get 15 links. So it's hard to say we're going to build exactly this amount of backlinks per month.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
having the hours gives us that flexibility where, hey, we're putting in the hours, we're meeting our obligation. Some months it might be a little bit higher, some months it might be a little bit lower. So that's worked really well as far as a pricing model. And it works well with clients' expectations. So they're not fixated on this one number. And if you hit it, if you're short of it, like, do you have to give them a refund for their invoice, or do you just bill them from the link? So it just streamlines everything. We do it based on hours.
Okay, that's also very good to hear. And in this case, when you do based on hour, do you actually charge more, or how do you adjust the pricing exactly for a certain task? Like, let's say 2 hours of outreach. I believe it includes let's say the potential salary, the tools that you use, or the taxes, etc. And how do you justify that cost to the client by explaining? Because it might be sometimes confusing for some, let's say, project owners to hear or to understand the reason behind it.
So we have our own pricing model where like 1 hour is going to be like 40 or $50, and then we have our price for deliverables. So when we're working with a client, we first determine what budget works for them. For most cases, it's going to be $5,000 a month. I'd say most of our clients are probably in that range because that gives you enough resources where you can actually you can effectively compete. And what I tell my clients is, if your budget is too small, you're not going to have enough resources to make a difference because your competitors have more resources. They could build more links. They could create more content.
Yes.
It's not even worth really pursuing. But I also tell clients on the other side, if they invest too much and if they're doing like 20,000 a month, it's such a large investment. It's difficult to deliver a positive ROI. So for the types of businesses we work with that are doing between 2 to 15 million a year, that 5 to 10,000 per month is the sweet spot where we have enough resources to make an impact, but it's not so much that it's impossible to give them a positive ROI. And so once we have that budget, we kind of work backwards. We say, okay, it's a 5,000 a month client. There's a few buckets we'll focus on. So like, how many pages do we need to optimize? How many technical issues are there with the site? How many backlinks do they need? So we have this kind of framework where, we'll go do an initial audit. We'll see what are the main technical issues. Is there a bunch of junk getting indexed that we're going to have to deal with? Are their pages poorly optimized? Do they not have enough content? Do they have a bunch of crappy, thin content that we're going to have to do a content audit for? So we have like 15 checks we'll do, and based on those checks, we'll deliver what on-page deliverables we'll do. And we'll also look at the backlinks. Like if they need backlinks, we'll make sure we put link building in. So there's a few buckets we're adjusting. We're saying for that 5,000 a month, how many pages do we want to optimize per month? How many backlinks do we want to build? And what technical deliverables we want to do? And we might put more resources in one of those buckets based on what they need.
That's actually a very smart way of doing things. I believe many agency owners, sometimes maybe they hesitate to do this, or maybe they are not able to streamline the things as it should be. But once everything is actually in the fit, it makes perfect sense. I mean, for instance, in my agency too, sometimes we do lots of stuff for just helping purposes to create the case study or to, let's say, manage the project. But actually, when you just say, actually, it makes very sense to, let's say, add them like as an extra service, actually, with reasonable prices by explaining the reason behind it. And I believe it will be helpful for all the employees or all the agencies as well. I can tell. It's great to hear. Well, and when it comes, okay, sorry.
I was going to say that's one thing. We've had a lot of discussions internally of like, if we came out with a new process or a new deliverable, do we charge the client extra for that thing? So like, hey, maybe we could do a topical map and we're going to charge an additional, $500. Or if we know something's going to help the client, do we just do it anyway as part of this retainer? And that's one thing, a discussion we've had. Like, if we know there's something we can do to help the client rank better, in almost all cases, we'll do that thing. Even if it's costing us a little bit more work and time internally, if we can get them better results, they're going to stay with us longer and it's going to pay for itself in the long run.
Yeah, it's a very, let's say, pragmatic, actually, mindset for both ends. It makes perfect sense. And when it comes to tracking the time, does any client ask you something like, how do I know that you have spent 3 hours of actually outreach? Exactly. Do you provide any type of, let's say, check system for them, or don't they ask about it?
So we track everything in ClickUp, but you'd be shocked to hear in the last 10 years, maybe one client one time has asked to see the hours, because we're pretty good at building links. They see links every single meeting come through. We give very robust link reports. So I guess they've never felt the need to ask because they see the links coming in. But sometimes you get those clients that are more particular. So really only like 1 or 2 times in the last 10 years has a client actually asked for it.
That's great to know. I mean, that's great to know. And when you deliver these links so fast, I believe it is thanks to your great SOPs. And many thanks for sharing many of them with me, by the way. I am thankful for it. And you are really good at actually creating these systems and streamline every process there. Since I witnessed, I'm able to say it openly. And in this case, let's say, what are the fastest ways of delivering these quality links for you? For instance, for you, the backlink resource is technically one person for doing the outreach, but how do you convince doing this outreach so successfully?
It's pretty tricky, but I'll just share a few tips that have worked well for us. So if we have a new client, one of the first things we'll do is do our prospecting. We'll try to find, hundreds of relevant websites. Like, let's take maybe it's a furniture client and we're going to go after interior design bloggers. So we can find a whole bunch of interior design bloggers. We'll make a list and we'll take like the top 50, for example, the most impactful ones. So we'll create an article that's called top 50 interior design bloggers to follow in 2025. We'll then reach out to each site and we'll say, hey, I just want to let you know we wanted to recognize you. You're on our list of the top 50 interior design bloggers. Here, let us know if the information is correct. Let us know if there's any internal links you want or any links you want us to add to pages on your website. And we're not asking for anything. We don't ask for a link. We don't ask for a badge. This is just purely for relationship building. So then maybe a month or 6 weeks later, maybe now we have like either an infographic or a research piece or some statistics about interior design industry. Now we're saying, hey, I know you covered this stuff. We just did some research and found some statistics on the growth of the interior design industry and the job market. Is this something you might be interested in? And we reply to that same email. So they remember us. They see that positive interaction. And that now when we're actually pitching something, we have a much warmer connection. And that's made it a lot easier to get backlinks from these sites that get pitched so many times per day.
It's actually a great thing, but it also means that you have a great something like PR team out there to find the idea, to create the infographic, to write the article as well. I will you also streamline this process. Do you use AI for these things to make them faster currently?
There are some places where we'll use AI to come up with ideas and we'll pick one of those. But what I found like works well for us is we have just like a few established frameworks that we'll do. So like the one I first described with you, a top blogger list. You can take that concept and apply it, for every industry, tech, fashion, gardening, whatever it might be. You can find the top 50 gardening blogs, the top 50 tech blogs. So that one is very repeatable. Same thing with statistics pages. Those work really well. You can aggregate some statistics. That's another framework that could work well. So there's a few times where we'll kind of go outside the box. It's just if you have a framework that's not proven to work and you're kind of just winging it, it's going to be harder to get success. Whereas if you have a proven framework of like, this is how we create a statistics page, or this is how we create a blogger list, you know the process. You can document everything from start to finish. You can streamline it a lot more, and assuming it works, scale it. So that's what worked well for us. Is come with a few established frameworks, repeat them with different industries and topics, but on occasion maybe use AI to do something a little more out of the box and experimental.
Since you have so many data already and so many experience, I believe you are easily able to implement it for any industry, for any website condition, since it's like over 10 years of agency. So you should be having everything in the past already, I can imagine. And speaking of the Shopify or the Magento, as an agency, do you also log into the CMS and add the content by yourself, fix the problems by yourself? Or do you communicate with a developer or designer or something? Or whether some clients, they don't want to give maybe the CMS access to be more protective. I'm sure that enterprises don't give it, but some others maybe they can. How do you handle this process, and what is your suggestion? What is the advantage of which option?
So I'd say 80% of our clients, they're comfortable with, they're happy to give us access. They don't want to chase down their developer and have extra costs. They don't want to do it. So they just give us the keys and say, hey, just run with it. So it's more peace of mind where they just know not only are we going to suggest things, but we're actually going to do the work too. And then, you have 10 to 20%, maybe they're bigger clients with more IT controls and they want to restrict access. So with that, we'll just work with the developer. We much prefer doing it ourselves because it's the speed of implementation is so much faster. If you don't have access and you're just relying on a developer, like you said, it could take a week, it could take a month. In some cases, it might take 6 months for the most basic change. So, our team, we're really passionate about SEO. If we see an issue, we want to fix it right away, and then we want to check the rankings to see what impact did that have on rankings and traffic. So it's a lot more fulfilling when you suggest something, get approval, you implement it that week. Next week, you can see if it had an impact. And when you see that arrow go up, you get a dopamine hit and it feels great. What's really frustrating is when you have all these great ideas that you've suggested and they're sitting in a dev log and you're just waiting. That can be very disheartening for an SEO who's passionate about what they do. So we're not the biggest, yes, if the client can implement it fast, great. But if they're not implementing it fast, we'd rather just do it ourselves.
Definitely. I definitely feel you there. And when it comes to implementing these by yourself, I believe your team already has enough experience with any type of, let's say, Shopify plugin or Magento situation. So they already have some SOPs to fix these issues, I assume. And in this case, do you have some suggestions maybe for some Shopify apps for some certain things? Do you have a kind of list of apps that you always use, build, or suggest?
Not so much for Shopify is actually pretty good out of the box. I know some people hate on it because of its forced URL structure, but honestly, I've seen so many Shopify sites rank very well. I don't think the /collection/products URL structure makes that big of a difference. Magento is that one requires a little more customization out of the box. So for any Magento site, we always recommend the MageWorks SEO suite, which will fix a lot of weird indexing or canonicalization issues that come out and give some other cool functionality. So some of those other platforms require a little more customizing. However, there's a few. Shopify is probably the most popular e-commerce platform right now, and there's a few fixes I see a lot, like their collection pages will link to the non-canonical product URL. So for that, what you'll want to do is update the theme liquid file to link directly to the clean product URL. There's also times where when you filter a collection by tag, that those are indexable. So you want to make sure you have canonicalization in place to canonicalize any duplicate collection pages to the root. So there's a few technical things that Maybe there could be an app that fixes it, but we see the issue so many times. We just have our own like internal code base of common Shopify fixes, and we just will go in the theme liquid file and drop those in.
Okay. So if you need to, let's say, play with some structured data, do you just do it in the liquid by yourself, or do you? I know that Shopify already prepares something built in, but let's say
Yeah.
you want to make it more detailed. In this, it's a hypothetical question. Would you do it by yourself in the hard code by modifying the liquid files, or would you use an app in this case? Or what's your suggestion there?
Most clients we work with will already have a few apps. A client comes to us, we find some issues with their structured data. A lot of times they'll have a few different apps in place. Or it's in the theme liquid file. So our approach is we'll just work with what they already have instead of suggesting something new, because if you're having like a app that has product reviews and that's generating the aggregate rating and the review schema, we want to make sure everything's working together. So we'll work with the apps they already have. If they don't have any apps in place, usually the working with Theme Liquid works fine for us, assuming we can get the custom variables passed through. So in most cases, it's Theme Liquid. Otherwise, we're just going to work with whatever apps they already have installed.
Okay, I understand. So you just focus on the actual results rather than the process itself, and
Yeah.
it makes actually perfect sense. And when it comes to the design, let's say you want to change the layout of the product pages, or you want to add some extra engagement components for category pages, or you want to change homepage to rank better for some of the, let's say, main queries that you target. Do you work with a designer on that situation, or do you go with development, or do you use just the built-in team options?
So that's actually something new we're doing now, and these past few months we've been rolling out. We're doing a lot more focus on UI UX, because our theory is you could have the best category page with the most backlinks and it's perfectly optimized, but if it has a high bounce rate, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good your SEO is if people are bouncing from your site. So what we're starting to do a big focus now on, we'll do some research, like we'll talk to the customer service team to ask them what questions do customers ask. We'll do some heat mapping with, Clarity or Hotjar. We'll look at screen recordings. We'll do some user testing. And then from all this research, we'll say, okay, what are the issues? What are the sticking points? What are the points of friction? And then we have some designers that we work with that are, they specialize in e-commerce. They'll take all the feedback, create a kind of modified layout that's more simple and structured, incorporates the feedback, and then we present that to the client. So, then it's up to the client if they'll have some feedback, and either we can implement it or they have a developer, they can implement it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I know so many SEOs who even don't check the data from Google Analytics or Clarity or Hotjar. They just go with changing title text or other stuff, and then just wait to magic happen. And the page rank or the semantics can help you to actually rank higher, but to be permanent there, the end signal will be coming actually from basically the clicks or the user signals that Google will be tracking from their DNS, from browser, from their mail addresses and cookies, endless cookies, actually. And about speaking of the semantics, I know that actually you are heavy on that too. If let's say people don't know, actually, I said at the beginning of the video, but if you just skip that part technically, we did a training together, and I believe you created lots of SOPs and different type of implementations with the topical maps or overall topical authority strategy. What do you think about that? Do you think that you have seen benefit from it? Or how do you teach it to your team especially, which is the main question here?
So yeah, we had a bunch of consulting sessions, and my job was I wanted to learn from you and take the Koray approach and try to distill it to a step-by-step linear process, which is not easy to do. It's a very complex approach with lots of nuance, and it's hard to capture that nuance. So we have we have our own version of the topical authority, where we build a topical map, and we have a very kind of structured, rigid topical map. So whatever the central entity is, there's a few things we want to know. What are the children of this central entity? What are the attributes of the central entity?
Yeah.
What are the looking at the ontology? What's the kind of related ones? We want to look at the use cases. So who will use this? And our central entity is always going to be the product, because that's what we focus on e-commerce. And we want use cases and then how to. So we have it might not be again, it might not be fully covering every single possible entity combination, but if we can get 80 or 90% of the way there, it makes it a
Yeah.
lot more scalable. And so we build that framework. So what we'll do then is we've built tools to scrape Google autocomplete, and that way, we can say like, we can scrape all the attributes, we can scrape all the use cases. Because if it's a use case, it'll be like compression socks for nurses or hair extensions for cancer patients. So that for modifier can help us find a lot of use cases really quickly. And we use Google Shopping to find the attributes. So if you search a product into Google Shopping, you can see on the left sidebar all the different attributes: color, size, material. So we'll get all those attributes, and we'll make sure we start building our topical map. We have our central entity, we have the children, the sub entities. We'll have each entity have defined with the attributes, like what's the best material for a mountain bike, or what's the all these
Yeah.
different things.
Yeah, I
So
remember that actually. We even talk about that entity. Do you remember your first topical map topic? It was like underwater,
yeah, you gave me
uh,
as part of our training. He was like underwater on ecology or something about it.
underwater, yeah, botanics or something. I remember because I asked you what is the most boring topic for you.
Yeah,
And then because to be able to help you to learn, I needed to make it boring for you so that you can actually stay focused to the specific subject. And I believe after you created a topical map, then I said that imagine that you are in e-commerce, then you are, let's say, in a university, and how
hmm
would you change it? So that's actually what you already explained in that area too. You just focus on the product, which is
yeah,
actually where the business model and the main attribute will be coming from there. And I remember you created great SOPs for this process
yeah.
for your employees as well. Did they like the process or did they hate it?
I think they don't think about it too much because all of our SOPs, it's so like click here,
Straight.
put this, enter this into the tool, do that. Like with my SOPs, I build the guardrails where it's really difficult to get off track. You just follow the instructions. So I think they're not really thinking about it. They're just like, all right, step 7. Okay, step 8. They're just clicking around, following it.
So they were able to do it basically, but when you give them clear instructions, even
Yeah.
as someone new was able to actually follow the path and give you the
Yeah.
results. And I'm happy for that. And when it comes to the let's say, not just the topical map, but also you have worked on, let's say, article side too. In our training too, we work on some revision of some text, working on some rules. I believe, as much as I can remember, years ago, before ChatGPT and anything else, you actually created an internal tool.
Yeah.
Do you remember that for
I,
question generation, answer pairing? I remember it, and we were
yep.
working on rule sets and ideas.
You told me about this one library. I think it's called Quest Gen, and so Quest Gen, it could take. This is before ChatGPT. It would, if you input content, it will extract questions from the content, and kind of the heart of topical authority is you're answering questions. So the more questions you get, the more you can answer, and the more high quality information, like actual information you can have in your content that's going to help a lot with information extraction. So that was our process. We built this, using Koray's great guidance. We built a tool with question that would extract questions that we could then use in the topical map and also in the content briefs to make sure we're answering these questions in the content.
Yeah, I remember that. It was a great moment for me. I mean, because I was stuck with lots of stuff back then,
Yeah.
and I was like, I want to do this, I want to do that. When I see that you were already doing that, I was feeling really actually good because it was like at least it is coming to the reality.
Yeah.
And since back then, did you improve that tool at all, or did you turn it to something else lately?
We used it, and then ChatGPT came out, and the capabilities of ChatGPT and these large language models were so much better that we just started using the large language models instead of our custom tool for those things.
Okay. And for AI, do you have any suggestions for, let's say, some agents, some flow workflows or flow connection of agents as well? What do you think about that process, or how do you get its advantage for semantics and beyond?
We could have a whole podcast about AI, and I love talking about the subject, but just I
We
guess
can actually, yeah.
real quick, me personally, I think the concept of AI agent is a bit overdone. I've yet to find one use case where a linear, make.com automation using
Yeah.
AI outperforms an AI agent. Maybe somebody has a use case, but I've yet to see it. I really like having a bunch of start to finish make.com automations that use AI than having an agent model, which is going to be way more complex and difficult to get up and running. So my advice to people is get familiar with make.com. Get experience with prompt engineering, and prompt engineering is just a fancy word for split testing prompts. Learn the best practices, but most of it's just going to be split testing your prompts to get good outputs. And get creative. So when it comes to blog posts, if you're just going to ChatGPT and you're saying, write me a 1,500 word blog post about can dogs eat yogurt, for example, you're not going to get that good result. But if you have a make.com automation that will crawl, it will crawl the top 10 ranking sites, it will extract their heading structure, it will feed that into an outline prompt to determine the best outline for it, and then it will pull statistics from authoritative sources and incorporate that. There's so much possibility of what you can do with AI and with automation. And if you're just doing prompt to publishing or prompt to minimal editing to publishing, you're already behind. You really got to look at what data can you pull in, how do you use AI to create a really high quality article, and you can apply the same method to all aspects of SEO.
Yeah, I agree with you. In my Saigon speech, actually, the orchestrating agents, I started that speech by saying that Sam Altman believes that actually 1% billionaire companies is possible. And in that speech, actually, especially at the end of the speech, I told people that I believe if anyone actually will become billionaire by using AI, let's say agents, orchestra of agents, I believe SEOs should be the first ones, because I believe for an SEO, the design was a bottleneck, coding was a bottleneck, and some others too. But thanks to AI right now, you are capable of doing these things. And you were fighting with algorithms so long, so you are already familiar with large language models or semantics overall. And I believe SEOs actually can just go beyond these meaningless content sites, and they can build real AI entrepreneurship for maybe home security or maybe for farming or different type of areas. It was my suggestion in that area. And I believe for SEO too, I'm sure for SEO context at least, you are already creating some great scenarios for automation. Once we talk also, you said that you are thinking about creating a separate agency or service just for automation in the context of e-commerce. Did you start creating some SOPs for it, or maybe some list of services by saying that if you want this automation, it is this much, etc.?
Yeah, I've thought about it. I always have to catch myself because there's so many distractions and there's so many shiny objects. And I know every minute I spend on something else is a minute it takes away from 180 marketing, e-commerce, SEO. So I try to be disciplined and say, okay, like, hey, this is working well. There's still things I want to improve, so I'm going to focus my attention here. But if I was starting an agency in 2025, honestly, I think I'd probably start SEO has a bunch of difficulties, but there's a huge opportunity now for AI and automation. I mean, you have the capabilities are there, the technology's there, but companies they're not technical. They don't know how to incorporate this in their business. So if you can come in and you can find what their issues are and what are their use cases and how are they, what are they doing manually, and find ways to streamline and automate that, that's going to provide so much value. And I can see that being a very helpful service in 2025.
To know that. And if you would be starting from zero today, would you create an AI agency or would you create an SEO agency if you would be at the point of zero?
I think if I was starting from zero, only because of my knowledge and network and connections. Oh, zero. I guess I don't have any of that. So if I just start from zero and I don't know anything about SEO or AI automation, I'd probably just do the AI automation, because I feel like it's a lot easier to show the benefit. Like, it's like, hey, you're spending this much on this problem. I can deliver the same solution, if not better, for a fraction of the cost.
Yeah.
I think it's way easier to show the ROI, and it's more streamlined.
Yeah, and speaking of the communication or showing the benefit side, which is let's say connected question to one of the previous questions, but you are, I believe, going on to the e-commerce conferences for, let's say, promotion of your agency. Am I right? You don't go to the SEO conferences, actually.
So I never go to SEO. I speak at a few conferences, but I only speak at e-commerce conferences. Because if I go to an SEO conference, I'm speaking to agency owners. If I go to
SEOs,
an
yeah.
e-commerce conference, I'm speaking directly to potential clients. And I always try to focus on value first and promoting myself. So it's like, showing case studies, here's what works. And if they want to work with me, great. But I always try, it's always a good balance between giving value versus promoting yourself.
And how do you sponsor these events? Do they just invite you to speak, or do you sponsor these events to speak on the stage, or both?
I've never sponsored an event. I just get invited to different conferences here and there.
That's actually great. That's the right way to do that, in my opinion. And if someone new, let's say, because most SEOs go to SEO conferences because most of the industry is about link building and they go there for selling links or buying links or maybe finding talent or creating connections. But if you will tell as a suggestion to them, what type of e-commerce conferences they should be going, maybe in Asia, maybe in Europe or Americas?
I think it depends on your market. So if you're going for the U.S. market, definitely go for some of the e-commerce ones, e-commerce conference in the U.S. If you're trying to, take that tip and go for the high volume, low competition and UK or Australia, then that's the conference you want to be at. But also think about the client size. So like there's e-commerce conferences I go to where it's really most of the business owners are probably doing between like 1 to 5 million a year. I've been to other e-commerce. I've spoken to other e-commerce conferences where it's more enterprise, and you're talking to people that are doing like more than 20 million a year. Which yes, we could help them, but that's more of the enterprise consulting, reporting type client that we don't really specialize with. So don't think about the location, but also think about what kind of store owner does this conference attract, and is that in line with the type of store owner you're going after?
That's actually a great suggestion too. And Jeff, I would like to say that actually you are one of the first people that I have trained with. John Coburn was the first one, Ben Stays was the second, and I believe you were the third one. I usually don't actually do that, but I must tell that with the good experience that you have given me, then actually I just work with a few more people just for having the same relationship that I have built with you. It actually went great too. I have many friends around the world right now. Maybe they will be also coming to here too. And if someone today from our community, we exceeded like 40,000 people today, and probably this interview will go to a newsletter with 20,000 people. What would you suggest people who learn actually our, let's say, methods or our concepts or our framework? And what did you help you actually to be successful with that, to help your clients or your employees?
I think if I was learning it now in 2025, I'd use Cloud or ChatGPT to help summarize some of the things. When I was first going through it, ChatGPT didn't exist. So what helped me a lot is kind of try to get to the core of the concept. Like try to figure out at the root, what are you really trying to do? There's lots of concepts and theories that are helpful to know, and they can give you a deeper understanding. But for me, it was, what am I really trying to do? And it's really trying to connect entities, show the relationship between entities, describe the attributes of these entities, and linking everything together in a very effective way in a good hierarchy that makes sense to Google. So once you focus more on yes, understand all the concepts, it's going to give you a deeper understanding, but don't stress yourself out if it doesn't all click right away.
Yeah.
Just focus on the core principles first, and the rest will come later.
Yeah, the good thing is that when we were doing these trainings, actually, you were open to the new mindsets. Many people were very judging, but you wanted to just learn honestly. That I believe that was the big difference there. And also, you are father of two kids, as much as I can remember. And one time, I believe you said that the methods that we have, you use it for teaching speaking to the one of them, as much as I can remember. Did it help really? Do you think?
Because I would say something to, I'm trying to remember the example it was, but like I'm trying to say like, oh, a cat, kind of like maybe there's like we're at the zoo and there's a leopard. It's like there's a leopard like a cat, and like I'm trying to make, in my mind, I'm picturing their brain as a topical map, and I'm trying to make a connection that the ontology of that a leopard is a type of cat, and a leopard is kind of like a cheetah, and I'm just like I'm visualizing this hierarchy in their brain. I'm trying to make these different connections.
Yeah. It was actually a great moment for me too when I see one of that emails as well. And speaking of the agency management and being a father, how do you do that? And this was my last question since we are coming to the 1 hour. But what would you suggest to the people? Because, for instance, for me, I will be probably a father like around 34. And until that moment, I will focus on business as much as I can. Because I know that both of them can't be happening at the same time. But what are you suggesting people, and what's your tricks for handling or managing both of them successfully?
I think I'm sure people listening might have picked up on a general theme, which is scalability. Like my whole approach is I'm fine if I don't get your SEO 100% of the way there. I'm fine if your topical map's not 100% perfect. I will accept that 80 to 90% because just getting it 80, 90% of the way there, you can still get amazing results, but it's only going to take 20% of the effort. And it also allows you to scale yourself. So, sure, you can, go from, let's say you have a topical map that's 90% of the way there, taking from like 90% to getting like the Koray 100% approval, it's a lot more work. It might be double as much work. So I just want to get something that's good enough to have a strong impact and settle with that. And then also with the agency, documenting everything, having SOPs. And this is a big one that I've learned over the years is hiring good people, because having good people is going to make your life so much better. Having people that are either lazy or cutting corners or don't follow instructions or have poor attention to detail, that's just going to suck up so much time in the long run. So if you have good people and you have good processes, it's really easy to scale.
I agree with you. And maybe the last one, if one day I would like to add our training sessions to our course, with your permission, if you want to cut it out, half of it still is okay. Would you approve us to do that maybe one day? You can say no, by the way. It's okay.
No, put our training courses on the course?
Yeah.
I thought they're already
under
there.
Your name, actually.
So yeah, I'm fine with it.
Not.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm happy
to
know
watch
that.
me struggle to learn all the topical authority concepts.
I believe they can learn greatly from there, because it was like 3 years ago maybe, and I believe we were ahead of the time greatly. I mean, many people will see that actually 3 years before we were talking about the things that they are talking today in the mainstream media actually. So it's a good lesson for everyone. So, Jeff, I believe I finished all the questions, and I believe we will be doing maybe this actually from time to time, because I believe my community needs experts like you, guides like you. And also you had a research, maybe you can also mention before I close. It was a research for e-commerce, I guess. I couldn't check it because I was like in Thailand by doing lots of things again. Would you like to mention that as well before the closing?
Yeah, we just published what I've seen. It's probably the biggest study of Google Shopping ranking factors. So we work with e-commerce. Google Shopping is becoming more and more. We've seen Google get more aggressive pushing Google Shopping results for transactional queries. So it's something we're focusing on. And we did a research of 5,000 transactional keywords that were all kind of related to a product. And we found, we did a big research project, pulled all these data points, and found some really interesting correlation. The summary of it is that if you're doing good SEO, you're probably also going to do good for Google Shopping. For Google Shopping, the biggest ranking factors was domain rating had the highest correlation, which it could be backlinks or it could be brand recognition. It's difficult to say what's the correlation or causation there. But the most actionable thing I saw that people could use is if a product has just 1 or 2 backlinks, its rankings skyrocket in Google Shopping. So just having if you have a few products that really matter, obviously it's not scalable if you have a catalog with 100,000 products, but if maybe you have a few that are really important, if you can just get 1 to 2 links to a product page, your Google Shopping rankings are going to be much, much, much better.
Is it this effect is only for that product page or group of products, or also connected category page too? Do you think
this is if we're talking about just Google Shopping rankings? One individual product URL having 1 to 2 backlinks to that one URL, that will make a difference for that one product.
Okay, and the links here, can they be from, let's say, do they have to be from let's say proper websites, or let's say a Reddit forum link? Does it also matter?
So I looked at followed links. I didn't look at I didn't factor in relevancy of links, because that was
okay.
But if we're just this is just quantity. I know you and I could probably talk about best practices. Obviously higher authority, more niche relevance probably going to work better. But yeah, just at least having some link is going to be better than no link, I guess.
Yeah, it's better than nothing technically.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay, Jeff, this time it's really end of the, I guess, the interview. Many thanks for coming and also helping the audience as well. I hope we will be having this again one day.
I hope so too. This was great, Koray. Had a lot of fun.
Thanks so much and see you next time.
Bye.